Welcome back. Throughout the Fallout series, we, as the protagonists, decide the fate of entire regions of the wasteland of post-war America, the factions that reign over them. However, after the credits roll, we're often left to wonder whether or not the choices we made were the correct ones. In order to preserve the idea that your character impacts the world based on how you play, Bethesda has in the past shied away from providing canonical endings for the Fallout games, as that tends to reduce people's immersion in the world if the outcome of the game is already predetermined. However, despite that, there are clues that we can use to piece together which endings are likely to be canon for each of the Fallout games. With that said, let's begin. Fallout 1 is arguably the easiest out of the lot, considering in Fallout 2 we're given an entire short story detailing the canon ending to Fallout 1, to the point where I've made an entire separate video on the subject. But to summarize, we know for certain that in the canonical ending to Fallout 1, the Vault Dweller saves the California wasteland by defeating the Master and his mutant army, destroying their base at the Cathedral and later the source of the FEV and the Mariposa military base, and in doing so inadvertently set the stage for the rise of both the Brotherhood of Steel and the New California Republic. Like I said, there's a lot more detail to this ending. Than the other games, so I'm summarizing. If you were wanting a more in-depth overview of Fallout 1's ending, I'd still recommend my earlier video on the topic. Next, we come to the second ever Fallout game, creatively titled Fallout 2. 2's ending is a lot clearer than some of the later titles, though not nearly as comprehensive as Fallout 1. Through the information we learn in 3, and more so in New Vegas, we learn that the canon ending involved the destruction of the Enclave's oil rig off the coast of California, a subsequent invasion of Navarro by the NCR and Brotherhood. From Marcus, we learn that the Chosen One did indeed help stabilize the community of Broken Hills and prevent an all-out race war between mutants, humans, and ghouls. Moreover, much like the Vault Dweller, we know that the Chosen One utterly decimated the reformed New Khans gang in Vault 15, ultimately securing the NCR's power as a faction in the region and driving the remaining Khans into Nevada. The Chosen One would then go on to lead the captured people of Vault 13 and Arroyo back to their home, using the grew Arroyo into a prosperous city and an oasis in Northern California to rival Vault City itself. We also know that the Chosen One indeed had a illegitimate child with one of the females of the Bishop family in New Reno, with the New Reno descendants of the Chosen One eventually becoming powerful figures in the city's crime world. In addition, it's also speculated that the wrecked Christless highwayman that we can find in New Vegas outside of Novak was indeed the same highwayman that was piloted by the Chosen One during the events of Fallout 2. While we are able to ascertain the broad strokes of the canon ending of Fallout 2, a lot of the smaller details in terms of the smaller towns and factions of the wasteland do remain hidden, as it's uncertain the state of both the She and much of San Francisco from Fallout 2. Coming up to the first of the modern Fallout games, Fallout 3's canonical ending is pretty clear-cut, since it's one of only 2 real endings in the game. In the canon ending, the Lone Wanderer does not infect Project Purity with a modified FEV from President Eden, and following the events of Broken Steel is said to have disappeared from the wasteland, but not before completing the Wasteland Survival Guide, with it becoming an extremely popular item in post-war America, with copies reaching as far as Las Vegas and Boston. We learn from Fallout 4 that following the Wanderer's disappearance, the Brotherhood would go on to largely cleanse the capital wasteland of the super mutant threat, rendering it one of the safer regions on the East Coast. However, during this, Owen Lyons, the East Coast Brotherhood elder, would pass away due to old age, followed by his daughter Sarah Lyons, who would die in battle during the final wars against the Vault 87 mutants. After a series of ineffective leaders, the Brotherhood would gather around Arthur Maxson, the last living descendant of the Brotherhood's founder, Roger Maxson, who would go on to reintegrate the Brotherhood outcasts and finally purge the capital wasteland of super mutants. From this, we also more or less gather that the good ending to Fallout 3 is the most canonical, considering in the epilogue in the Vault Dweller Survival Guide, we learn that Megaton is still in existence 15 years post the ending of Fallout 3. Meaning, for all intents and purposes, it's very likely that the quote-unquote good karma playthrough was the canonical ending to Fallout 3, with the Lone Wanderer not detonating the nuke in Megaton, and not planting the FEV modified vial into the Project Purity water supply. In addition, we don't have any canonical background for the events of the DLCs for 3, considering that we aren't sure what the status of Point Lookout, Mothership Zeta, or the Pit were. However, we can be sure that the Broken Steel ending does conclude with the Enclave being defeated, and the Brotherhood of Steel Citadel, located in the Pentagon of Washington DC, does indeed survive the effects and wasn't orbitally destroyed, as in one potential ending to Broken Steel. Moving on to Reddit's favourite Fallout game, we have arguably the hardest ending to canonically place. Considering that New Vegas is the second most recent game in the timeline, and the most recent of the West Coast Fallouts. However, we can still speculate on what New Vegas' canon ending would be. Most of the discussion online centers around either the House or the Legion endings being the canon ending to New Vegas. And considering what we know from the recent Fallout TV show, I'm inclined to agree with that sentiment. Most songs in New Vegas point to either House or the Legion being the ultimate victor of the second battle for Hoover Dam, with either option not being particularly favourable for the NCR. It's still not entirely clear what the outcome of New Vegas' DLCs are, but aside from that, New Vegas remains one of the most mysterious out of the mainline games, which I think is probably for the best. Like I said before, if there was a set in stone true ending, it would take away a lot of the player character's impact on the world if the outcome was predetermined. Despite that, most people still consider the House or Legion endings to be the most likely to be canon, considering that a lot of the discussion online focuses on how likely the Legion is to win the second battle of Hoover Dam, and how much the House ending of New Vegas seems to fit with the overall themes of the game, with multiple characters espousing how likely the Legion is to win the second battle of Hoover Dam. Moving on to the most recent game in the timeline, we have Fallout 4. And ironically, there's more information for us to base this part of the video on than New Vegas. For example, due to the events of Maximus's storyline in the Fallout TV show, we know that the East Coast chapter of the Brotherhood is still a significant force on that side of the country, with Maximus being sent west across most of North America to reach California. The fact that the Brotherhood still has a functional airship by the time of the Fallout TV show indicates that they were likely successful in their campaigns against the Institute and the Commonwealth, meaning that the Brotherhood of Steel ending for Fallout 4 is most likely the canonical ending for the game. Either that, or another possible option is that the Minutemen ending for Fallout 4 is canonical, with this, the Brotherhood having not been declared an enemy by the Minutemen, and the Prydwen having survived the war in the Commonwealth. That the Prydwen is described as taking roughly 15 years to produce, it's unlikely that, in the event of their destruction either in the Institute or Railroad ending, that the Brotherhood would have been able to construct an entirely new one by the time of the Fallout TV show, especially considering how much of a unique beast the Prydwen is, considering that it was built primarily with parts of the Enclave's mobile base crawler from Fallout 3. In that case, it's unlikely that, in any scenario, the Brotherhood would have lost the war in the Commonwealth, meaning that for all intents and purposes, the Fallout 4 canonical ending is more than likely to be the Brotherhood ending. And with that, we've more or less covered every single potential canon ending to the Fallout games. Like I said, however, a lot of these endings are fluid, and it's unlikely that for many of these we'll ever get a solid canon ending explained. But regardless, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and since there's nothing else, have a great rest of your day.